Hey, Star Wars fans. Welcome to episode 78 of the Star Bros podcast. I'm joined by my bro host, Ben Skywalker.
I'm joined by my bro host Jan Solo.
What's funny about that?
It just was really weird. You started talking like right as the intro music was still going, and I'm like, "Whoa, ready to go! You're excited.
Well, we've
You're
got
pumped.
we've got exciting stuff to talk about. We're going to be
You
talking
sound less
about
excited now."
we're going to be talking about what did they call it again? Parts, not chapters, not episodes.
Oh, I thought it was like chapters.
I thought that was Book of Boba Fett.
That definitely was Book of Boba Fett, and it was definitely Mandalorian. So I thought they just carried it to this one. I wasn't even paying attention.
Well, whatever they're called, we're going to be talking about installments 6, 7, and 8, the last 3 episodes, parts, chapters of Ahsoka, which was absolutely terrific. So if you haven't watched it, now would be a good time to go back and watch it because this is going to be full of spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, before we get into that, we always like to check in on one another because that's what bros do. And we encourage you to check in on your bros. So how are you doing?
I am well. I'm trying to think if I had anything crazy over the last couple of weeks to talk about, but I don't think I really do. I went to a wedding.
Wild.
I never go to weddings. I never get invited to weddings. I'm not a wedding kind of guy. I don't know. Maybe I just don't know anyone getting married anymore.
You know, I felt like for a little while there we weren't getting invited to any, and I think we had 4 this year, and we've got one
Holy
more.
cow.
So it's you can't plan other people's love lives for them, so you never know.
And you can't really like plan like how much. Well, it's just you never know what kind of wedding they're going to have. If they're going to have a big one where they invite all their friends and family, or if it's just going to be something small and quaint, and they're like, no, it's nothing against you. We're just not having that kind of wedding.
Yeah.
But either way, I was invited to one, and it was nice. It was a beautiful wedding, and had a lot of fun. The groom was a very I'm going to tie this to Star Wars. Watch.
Okay.
The groom was a fellow nerd and fellow fan of many fandoms, Marvel, Star Wars, and all that. And so I wore my Darth Vader cufflinks and showed them to him, and he I think he liked them. I think he was just like, who is this guy? Knew the bride.
Oh, right, because you knew the bride's family.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So he's like, okay, this guy's show. He was really cool about it, actually. He was like, oh, that's so cool. But
this guy wandered in off the street for a free meal and now is showing me his cufflinks.
I was just so proud of myself for knowing what he likes and wearing something that he would enjoy. And it was really funny because during the speech that the bride's dad was giving, he said something to the extent of, he's probably wearing his Marvel socks right now. And then he literally pulled up his socks and he was wearing Captain America socks.
Nice. Okay. He sounds cool.
He's a cool kid. He's a real cool kid.
Nice. So, well, I'm glad you had a good time. I'm glad you got out. And I think you had a little bit of family help watching the kids. So it was just mom and dad's night out. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was good. It was good to have some family in town and hang out. But how was your how's your last few weeks been? You've been busy.
Dude, pretty good. I'm wearing my Phillies cap for those of you who are listening to the podcast and can't see us, and that is because our dear Phillies here in Pennsylvania are in the playoffs, and they just won the wild card series, and they're playing the Atlanta Braves next, which is the team of our bro host Claire. So we might have a little bro axiom rivalry going, but we shall see how that turns out. But I'm excited. As for today, I am excited and hopeful.
And as for tomorrow, we'll all be friends again. But for now, you're my enemy.
Yes, bitter enemies.
Not that bad.
No, not that bad at all. But
don't worry, guys. We're still all singing Kumbaya.
We are. What do you say we get into talking about what might be
news from? Oh, we don't do that anymore.
We don't do that anymore. What might be some of like the best Star Wars TV ever?
Yeah. That's a pretty big statement there to start off with.
Well, that's just my silly opinion. You're welcome to disagree, but I loved it.
Good.
It's so well done, and
I think a lot of people did. Don't worry, it's good.
I'm not alone by any means, and we're going to break it down a little bit. But
I did want to start. That's a good place to start though, because I think we really liked it. I've talked to a few people who haven't. I don't think I don't want to put her words in mouth, but I don't think it was like my wife's favorite of them so far.
That's okay.
Partial to like Mandalorian, and I think there's something that Filoni said right before this all kicked off about how you don't have to have seen Rebels beforehand or know all these characters um to really get into the series or to really understand
Yep.
what's going on. And to some extent, I think that was true. But at the same time, I kept thinking it's so rewarding if you do. And therefore, is it not as good for some people who may not have all that backstory?
Maybe it's definitely enriching for somebody like me. I didn't even finish Rebels.
That's true. You're still getting through it, right?
But I mean, I've heard everything that happens, I think, and
yeah,
I've loved what I've seen, and it does enrich the experience of watching the show to have seen the other show. And I think that's just going to be the case with Star Wars going forward. I think there's going to be overlaps and intersections and callbacks and all that stuff. And the show has its fair share, but I don't think you need to watch all that stuff to enjoy it. I don't think you even need to be like, I feel like Andor, The Mandalorian, this show, you don't even need to be like a diehard Star Wars fan. You can be a casual watcher and still enjoy the relationships between the characters, the struggle between good and evil, the
for sure. Like the themes are still good. The themes are still relevant to anything that you ever watch. And I was talking about this with a buddy at work about, I think we're talking about Wheel of Time, and I haven't seen it yet, but he was mentioning that it's one of those that you have to be comfortable not fully understanding everything that's going on. My vantage point was like, cool. I think things should make you work to understand them a little bit. Like it shouldn't be so watered down that you kind of lose some of the enjoyment out of it, or like
agreed,
the challenge that comes from having to like get into it. Like people are like, oh, Marvel, it's so many movies now. I'm like, then make the time, because it's one of the most amazing accomplishments in cinematic history. So I think it's worth challenging the audience.
So you're a bigger Marvel fan than I think that's safe to say, and you certainly got the trivia down more than I do, and not to call it trivia because it's not trivial. It's all really important.
I didn't even think of it that way, but now I'm taking offense.
But did you know that Marvel Comics? You probably do know this. Marvel Comics all take place in the same universe. Did you know that? Did you freeze?
I mean, they do. I did for a little bit. Yeah, you back?
Okay, I'm back. We're back.
We're all back. We're okay. I think my Wi-Fi is really bad today. I don't know why. But I mean, it's 616. Yes, it takes place in the same universe, but they can go to other universes.
They can. Okay. So, but even before you get to that, there's a book called All the Marvels where a guy tried to read every single Marvel comic book ever.
Yeah.
And when you stack them up all together, it's over 500,000 pages.
It's insane.
And so technically, since it's all in the same universe, it's technically one story. And it's the longest story, the most detailed story ever written by humankind.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, 500,000 pages.
Yeah.
How many paper cuts do people get reading that?
I don't know.
Anyway, these are the things. That's where my mind goes. Let's go back to Ahsoka.
So going back to Ahsoka. So I think this is a pretty cool accomplishment. If you think about what Dave Filoni has done in live action before this, not a whole lot. And
besides a handful of Mandalorian episodes, like this was really his first pass at something live action. And fully owning it from front to end.
Owning it, being sort of the mind behind the show, behind a lot of these characters and so on. I think it's a home run. But a couple things maybe for us to segue into this. And by the way, we're not going to take each episode beat by beat. We're not going to walk you through them. We're going to pick out some of our favorite moments, some of the moments that we thought were most meaningful, We're going to pick out themes that we thought were really important to the overall story, and themes that especially came through in these last few chapters or whatever they're called. And then we've got a ton of questions because we were just saying before we started recording, it feels like the show had a satisfying season 1 ending, but it's not like it ties everything up in a neat bow.
No.
So a couple things I wanted to mention before we jump in. I cut you off there, and I'm okay with that. I hope you are.
Yeah. Yes. Keep going.
One, as of yesterday, I think, if you look up Sabine Wren on StarWars.com, she's listed as a Jedi.
Okay.
They changed that.
Interesting. And it's so funny because I think I remember, I don't know if I said this, but I'm pretty sure I did not want that to happen going into this. And now that it has, I'm okay with it. It's weird. Like, it's one of those things where you go, if I feel like this at the beginning, then I'm going to feel like it at the end. No, like I kind of went in knowing that Filoni was probably going to go there a little bit, and he went there, and I ended up feeling fine about it.
Is it because of the way that he brought you there? Is it because of the way you watch the character evolve?
I think for one, yes, the way that he brought us there, I think worked. It wasn't like it just came easy. It's not like it happened. And I think one thing I picked up on was that the only times that she actually really was force sensitive was when it was out of desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like in these futile moments where she was like, if I don't find that that ability within me to get through this, I'm gone. I'm dead. This is it. This is how I go. And so she found it. I mean, we'll talk about the last episode here, but that's what she was literally being choked to death, and she found the ability to pull the lightsaber towards her. And then in the next one, her friend was falling off of a cliff, and she pushed him to safety. So yeah, it's always out of desperation. And so I think that's the key for her, is what she's found, is like, I have to figure this out now, or else the consequences will be irreversible.
I think it's that, and I think
irrevocable.
Maybe both. I think it's that, and I think it's also that you go back and you look at like some of Yoda's lessons and so on, and a lot of it is like clear your mind. And I think when you are in a desperate moment like that, you're not thinking in the normal like day-to-day thinking that you do. There's probably not a lot of room for like, I'm feeling some doubts. I don't know if I can do this. It's not really my thing. And so like your mind is about as clear as it can be. And maybe that's when you can connect to the Force a little bit easier. I think it's really interesting how Ezra refers to the Force as an ally and not as like something that's like inherently part of him, but something that's sort of like working alongside him. And at one point, Hu Yang says something to the effect of like, the Force doesn't give us answers. It gives us insights. It's different than answers.
Yes.
And so like the way that I thought about the Force a little bit evolved here, in that it's kind of like this companion thing that can guide and be a really powerful ally, but isn't necessarily like you got it or you don't. And in that sense, I think it sort of worked for me even a little bit more to see Sabine kind of get it over time.
Yeah. I agree, and that's kind of the expectation, is that it is a journey, and we know that it's harder for someone who isn't forced or who hasn't been practicing it basically since birth, to kind of find that, and we see that struggle within her. But I mean, there were signs there the biggest sign that was there in Rebels was that she could wield a lightsaber, and she struggled with it at first, but then after a while, she figured it out. So that does take someone who is who's trained, who's a little bit more force sensitive, who's a bit more understanding of the power that they're wielding. So I think the seeds were planted. I think it was there.
I agree.
And then of course, through the training that Ahsoka gave, she kind of brought it out a little bit, but only so much. It only came out in spurts, basically. So anyway, I that was something I kind of went into this going, I'm not sure I'm going to like that, and then it happened, and I ended up being okay with it.
Okay, I'm glad it worked for you. It definitely worked for me. Maybe let's talk about what this episode is called. I came up with a really good name for this episode right before we started.
You did. I can give you credit. I'm not gonna be ashamed of that.
I'm just goofing. New boot goofing. You came up with it.
I did, but it was through a lot of effort on our part to figure out something. We were throwing so many things around. The Chronicles of Peridea.
Oh, say it again.
The Chronicles of Peridea.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, we weren't inspired from anything that Filoni did in the title of the last episode when he obviously was copying Chronicles in Narnia. No, yeah. Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. So we take pride in trying to have fun episode titles, and it seems like Dave Filoni does too. So
I think he's inspired by us. I think he saw all of our puns, and he was on Star Wars related things, and he's like, or pop culture, and he's like, I got to have a hand in this too.
I mean, I can see it, but can I tell you one of the episode names that I came up with that I was like embarrassed to share?
So you're telling me you were embarrassed to share it, and instead of sharing it personally one-on-one, you're not going to share it over the air. Go for it.
Yeah, with all of our anonymous listeners, they're not going to judge me. So I was reading about the Jedi, the Witch, and the Warlock title, and how Dave Filoni, who's that?
Dave Filoni.
Oh. Dave Filoni. Oh goodness. So Dave Filoni.
I'm not editing that one out. That's
no, leave it in.
It's better than the one I had to edit out the one time.
Yes, we can. We'll do that in our Patreon episode. So Dave Filoni likes to read. He's a literary guy. There's plenty of evidence here that he's enjoyed Macbeth and maybe C.S. Lewis and some other ones just in the titles that he's using. And there was an article about Dave Filoni's a reader. He's a sharp dude. And, he likes to make literary puns. And so one that I came up with was Gone with the Shin.
That's not embarrassing at all. That's really good.
No, it's not. You're very kind.
It's very good. Oh, now I'm wishing we could just rename this one. Oh, that we'll have to talk about.
This one's called The Chronicles of Peridea. And maybe to segue into actually talking about the show a little bit more, can I call something out that I was thinking about a little bit?
You always ask me permission. I'm never going to stop you.
Well, that's my way of doing a transition that maybe the audience can follow along with.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Thanks. So this last kind of act of the show takes place in an X-galactic location. So we're X galaxy. We're not in the galaxy that we know. We're in a different galaxy. And we are on this planet Peridea. And for some reason that the name of the planet just jumped out to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's like the Latin root? What does it mean? And I found that there's a Peridea golf club in Florida. So I don't know if Filoni drove past it and was like, oh, that's a good name. But what does the French word perdu mean?
Lost. Ooh.
Yeah.
Perdu. Nice.
And similarly in Spanish, and
Padre.
No, I think it's perdu, perdir, and I think other Romance languages. So it's a lost place.
Yeah,
it's where people go and become lost just because they're there. And we start out this run with Thrawn and Ezra are lost in space and they're on the lost planet. And by the end of it, everybody sort of switched places. You get Thrawn off the planet, you get Ezra off the planet. They're replaced with our heroes who we end this season 1 run with them being lost in space on the planet and not knowing how they're going to get back. So
yeah, ironic, isn't that? Yeah, that they did all kind of switch places and that we're it's back at square one almost.
It's a full swap, trading places, and yeah. So I thought that was interesting. I thought so I've got my red light behind me for people who aren't able to see, and That's very intentional because it is kind of a spooky place. It is kind of a creepy place.
It is. There's definitely something that we'll talk about Balin and
Yeah.
being attracted there because of some kind of unforeseen power
Yeah.
that existed that he is really keen on finding. Um,
Very.
yes, very.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, um, I just love that emphasis. That was great. But there just seems to be something really spoopy about this place, but also
Big
intriguing
time.
too. Like it looks desolate in many ways. You've got the witches that have put their big mouth gaping statues up all over the place, and
Yep.
they've got their citadel, and then you've got whatever Balin's found there. So it is a well, actually, no, let's get into it. Let's get into some of these things.
Sure.
One of the things that I want to talk about is in Far Far Away, we're introduced, by the way, amazing job on Filoni's part to get that classic line in a galaxy far, far away
Works it in.
into canon. He worked it in there,
Mm-hmm.
called the episode Far, Far Away. But there seems to be this whole thing about stories and being a focal point. So you start off and Ahsoka's hearing one of these old stories, and then Balin's referring to one of these old stories. But also this area Peridea, which I wrote down to now is making more sense, has a long lost connection to the origins of the galaxy. Lost
Mm-hmm.
now being the key word. Now I'm writing it down, going, maybe that was inspired by the word that I didn't even see the word in there, but
Yeah.
lost. But there are some long lost origins to the galaxy within this planet somewhere. So anyway, it just seems to be like a big thing, and I found this interesting. Balin recalls them as children's stories, and Ahsoka's like she's like, I remember these being told to me as a child. So they're told to them in the Jedi Temple. So they've got some sort of significance, or why would they be teaching them in an elementary school?
Because I think the stories that like we hear when we're kids are the same way. Like I think like fables and stuff are like usually instructive in some way. Like there's some moral lesson. There's something that maybe you don't pick up on it because you're just enjoying the story as a kid, but it sticks in your head. And usually like there's some kind of lesson. So I think there might be something to that where these are like little Jedi Padawan fables.
Yeah. But they've come to life now for both Balin and Ahsoka. Now that they've kind of ventured into this long lost world. By the way, I found it really interesting that in my rewatch of this, I picked this up because the next episode had already come out. But Balin also referred to the planet as a world of dreams and madness, and then the next episode was called that.
No, I missed that.
I was trying to figure out, was there a reason for calling the episode that, or why the connection to that line specifically? Couldn't really think about it, but I also found it really interesting that like Balin's motivation, like coming to this planet to end the power cycle, to seek a power that's greater than that's greater than the power that everyone else in the galaxy is seeking, which is all temporary in his mind.
Yeah, but what could that possibly be?
Well, we get some hints at the very end. So he's standing on a statue. If you look closely, that's so the Mortis episodes in Clone Wars, that's the father. And I think someone I didn't see it myself, but I think someone said that they saw a statue of either the son or the daughter there too. But it's this whole idea of like the father represented balance, the son was the dark side, the daughter was the light side. So there's some kind of source of power here that's somehow related to maybe that fable itself, the fable of the father, son, and daughter. So maybe that's the tie-in. Maybe it's some connection to the Mortis world or something like that.
Okay, I like that a lot.
Or world. It's more of a realm, but anyway.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So maybe some type of like portal or passageway that can bring that into the galaxy, or bring back some wisdom from it, or whatever, or some power that can stop the historical power cycle. That's heavy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, basically, they're gods, right? So maybe it's a pathway for him to see himself like ascending to some kind of godlike state. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll find out. Getting back to your point about questions, we'll find out.
Yeah. But I thought that the arrival of Ahsoka and team at Peridea was really interesting. I thought it was, so it seems dark and creepy from far away, but then you arrive and it's a Purrgil graveyard and a minefield,
Yes.
all in one. Like, no, I can't imagine a less hospitable way to arrive at a planet.
Yeah.
But I think this is the episode where, and maybe an episode before this, when Ahsoka kind of goes through her, reincarnation, I guess, where she becomes like Gandalf the White. She becomes Ahsoka the White with her white robe. Like a lot of what I see happening with the characters in this season and in these last few episodes, especially, is a theme of transformation or becoming something that they aspire to. So pick out any character and they experience dramatic changes in these last few episodes. Let's look at Morgan. She arrives this human who all of a sudden is now, by the end of it, transformed fully into a Night Sister with all these different powers and stuff like that. Something that she aspired to. Balin shakes off his responsibilities as a master and a teacher and goes out on his own in pursuit of whatever his dream is.
Yeah.
Sabine is flexing her muscles as a Jedi, and so on and so on. Like every character transforms in some way in this lost place, which is really interesting to me.
That's interesting. I'm trying to think of how Ahsoka did, but you could argue that she did right before they got there. I mean, I think. Go ahead.
I'm driving through a tunnel. I think Ahsoka's big transformation in this is first, before she gets there, she has a reincarnation. But when she's on Peridea, she transforms back into some version of a Jedi Master. And she's sort of redefined by her relationship to Sabine and is bringing in some of the trust things, the I've got your back things that Anakin had taught her that maybe she had not used with Sabine before.
While we're there, I kept thinking back to the lesson, right? That she chooses to live, or, I think that was the line that she used, like, I choose to live, right? That is it. And I was trying to think, is that what we see her do in this episode? Like, she seems kind of content with the fact that she just got stranded on Peridea.
She seems like more at peace than she has been the whole series.
And she seems at peace with the fact that Thrawn's returned and that Sabine made the choices that led to Thrawn's return. She's accepted that.
Yeah.
And I love her explanation. She was basically like, look, I had to, I made some very questionable decisions, and in my, my master had my back through it all.
Yeah.
And now she's going to as well. So yeah, you may have made the decision that led to Thrawn's return, but you also made the decision that got Ezra home.
Yeah.
So
and they're all safe and alive and in one piece.
Yeah.
And that means there's a chance. That means they can potentially figure out how to get off world and get back and save the galaxy.
Yeah.
So for the most part, yeah, there's, having Thrawn back is not a good thing, but for the most part,
it is for us that like Star Wars and want more good content.
For sure. But Sabine's gamble paid off.
It did. And it paid off for her, for Sabine. She got to see her friend again. It paid off for Ahsoka. She got to learn some valuable lessons from it.
Poor Ezra, who sacrificed himself to get there in the first place and probably didn't want to live out the rest of his life on this distant planet, although he seems pretty happy with the little noddy shell dudes. But now he has a chance to, warn the galaxy. Thrawn is back. We got to do something about it.
And be reunited with Hera.
Which is
a really special moment. I like that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There was a lot of transformation that happened with the characters, and even if you think of like Shin, she's now on her own, and she's in a weird place. Like, we'll get again. This is one of the questions. It's like, where is she going? Why is she joining forces with this group, and what is she going to become for this planet?
So I maybe we can talk about her for a second. I felt like what Filoni was showing us with her character were some doubts along the way. And I don't know if it was like doubts about Balin and his instruction and his direction.
But there was absolutely that. Towards the end, she was like, "What are you doing? I don't understand."
Yeah, but I couldn't tell if it was more like, "What are you doing? This isn't the Balin I know," or if it was more like, "What are you doing that is making me do things that I don't want to be doing, that I feel like are not right on some level." But I think she is capable of like real cruelty and some bad stuff, to the point where at the end of the last episode, where you see her raise her saber when she comes upon those raiders, like the raider camp, I was like, is she going to take over and be their new leader? Or is she going to slaughter them? Like it's
she gonna pull an Anakin? No, like she doesn't really have that kind of vendetta or something against them. She has no malice or anything. I think doesn't. It's more just to say like, hey, you guys were just taken out by Sabine, who was wielding one of these things, and I'm coming here saying, I've got one too, and I'm gonna lead you now. Like that was the sense that I got from it.
Yeah. And I think it's a survival thing too, of like, look, if I have to live on this planet, it might be a little bit easier if I build a little army for myself and get them to do my bidding.
Yeah, but we got Nodi versus Marauders now, and lightsabers on both sides.
No, leave those guys alone.
I know, they're too cute.
Yeah.
What's one of the topics you wanted to get to within any of these episodes?
I mean, what did you think of? We finally got live action Thrawn. We got live action
where
Thrawn
I was going to go.
In action, like doing his thing, being the tactician, playing 4D chess, being 5 steps ahead of everybody. Him and his weird little Burger King friend.
You just did an Arrested Development thing, by the way, and I don't think you even realized it.
No, I didn't.
I won't make it. It's a tough reference to try to make, but you're doing like the number thing, where like you're like, like going up in numbers, and there's a moment in Arrested Development where they do a joke on that. Anyway, okay. I've already over-explained it. I just thought you were doing our obligatory Arrested Development and Good Place reference.
We'll find a way to work in the Good Place. Maybe Peridea is the good place, not the bad place. I don't know.
Maybe it's the medium place. No, I was hoping you would go to Thrawn because we got a lot to talk about with him. I mean, he was exactly as built for me. He was, I'd say, perfectly cast because he was already cast. Like that was Lars Mikkelsen, his role from the start when he did. He voiced him in the animated version of Thrawn, so it just made sense that he come over and play the live action version. And I think I've talked about him, but if you've ever seen Sherlock, he plays a villain in Sherlock called Charles Magnuson, and he's just awful. I mean, he's just a regular human being.
In what way?
So he's like this big media has this big media conglomerate that he leads, and he leads it through blackmail. Like the way he gets his stories, the way he gets his digs and gets favors and all this stuff is purely through blackmail. And of the most horrendous stuff. And he just uses it to get away with whatever he wants. Like at one point he literally urinates in Sherlock's fireplace, like because he can.
This is a G-rated program.
I know. That's why I said that's why I used a medical word for it. Anyway,
wait. Can I tell a pee story real quick?
What?
No, this is funny.
Well, this is not G-rated anymore, guys.
No, listen. No, this is totally G-rated. So we took my in-laws' dog on a train ride the other day. We went up to Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. You can get on an old-timey train, and you can take the train out into a beautiful park, and it's lovely. Anyway, their dog is really sweet and like loves everybody. And a mom came over with her little kid, her toddler.
Oh, and no.
The toddler goes,
I feel like I'm witnessing the train crash right now.
No, it's fine. And like the dog loves the toddler and vice versa, and it was super cute. And then like she starts leading me away on the leash, the dog, and she goes over on the grass, and the mom goes, give her some space. She might have to go potty. She might have to pee. And the little kid like stomps his foot, and he's like, I want to pee. And the mom goes, yeah, well, you're wearing a diaper, so go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, seriously.
But he was just like so upset that like he couldn't do everything that the dog was doing with the dog
was doing.
Yeah. Oh, and the mom was like, yeah, you're wearing a diaper, so I don't know what to tell you.
Go ahead, kid.
Yeah.
I've set it up so you can. All right. Whenever you want.
Cut that out. Let's go. We were talking about Star Wars.
That out. That's staying in. Anyway, back to Thrawn.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Okay. My point being that it was just like watching the same character that I watched in Sherlock, just Thrawn. That was it. It was the same actor. He was acting it very similarly. Like it was so hard to disconnect the two, but it made perfect sense at the same time. And if anyone goes and watch Sherlock, they'll know what I'm talking about. But I think what I love so much about him, especially in this first episode, Far, Far Away, it's that, he's basically gifted Sabine. Most other warlords, most other evil people, if they're gifted one of the people that was responsible for alienating them or abandoning them or causing them to be in their current situation, like they would be so furious to be like, all right, this is my ability to just
revenge time,
get my revenge. And yeah, Sabine's dead basically.
Yeah.
But she sees it as he sees it as an opportunity. Free her and make it look like I'm being benevolent, and then take advantage of that, take advantage of you for after that. Like that's exactly how I would see. That's exactly how I build Thrawn, is just the guy who doesn't think like everybody else, and that makes him all the more frightening.
Isn't it amazing how he's held it all together though? Like it
he doesn't have like a nervous tick, or his eyes just like.
No, I mean, like look at his ship. So things are kind of looking rough, but he still has a loyal crew. He's still got his stormtroopers. The ship
Night
is
troopers.
Still functional. Yep.
They dead.
Yeah. He's still kind of got his neatly ironed officer's uniform. Like it's been
keeping up with appearances. Yes.
Yeah. And it seems like it would be easy for all of that stuff to fall apart and just be total chaos, but somehow he's kind of like held himself together the whole time.
Yeah.
So what did you think of some of like, I was impressed with like some of the visuals, like especially like Enoch's mask. Like what's the deal with that?
Amazing. No idea, but that was I know there was a lot of looking into that after people saw that and researching like Enoch, who is that? And I think there's it has something to do with like being risen from the dead or something, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember, but I'll have to go look that up. But yeah, some of the visuals were great again, with like all the red cloth that was wrapped around some of them, like just made them look spoopy.
Yeah,
scary.
Absolutely. Very, very creepy.
Yeah. And you don't get that from stormtroopers all the time. Usually there's like, okay, there's a stormtrooper and he's going to be dead soon.
Yeah. Very creepy. And it was sort of creepy to see Ezra later on wearing one of their uniforms and kind of emerging from it, as compared to like all the other creepy ones that we got to see. But I really liked some of the visuals, like the contrast of the Chimera, the big ship coming in, the big modern ship landing on, what was it called? The building?
Oh, I don't know. Oh,
the fortress,
Citadel.
Citadel fortress. And like just that the connection between like the old and the new coming together, and the witches and the modern military tactician working together. I've always liked. I don't know if you ever got into them, but like the Hellboy movies and the Hellboy comic.
Never did, but I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
So one of the things that is like
it's so funny, like the Marvel stuff that I'm really into, and then you've seen the Marvel stuff I haven't seen. I'm just loving this.
Yeah. Is Hellboy Marvel?
Pretty sure. Yeah.
Oh, cool. So like part of the origin story is the baddest of the baddies, the Nazis, actually, and apparently this is really true, actually tried to like harness evil to help them win, like using psychics and black magic and stuff like that. And they unintentionally invite into the world in the comic books what ends up being a hero, what ends up being a good guy, and ends up fighting against people like them. But to me, it was like sort of there were some parallels there of like Thrawn tapping into the dark side, tapping into evil to help him achieve his ends of restoring the glory to the Empire and so on, and probably just saving his own hide and getting off that planet and being able to live back in the galaxy he knows again. But I like that combination of like the bad guys are willing to do anything, like basically literally sell their soul in order to be able to win in this mortal life and get back to power in this mortal life and all those things.
Yeah. I think that's interesting. And by the way, I was looking up Enoch, and this is kind of getting to the point you're saying. I mean, that's a biblical character. One of the first things that pops out and just looking at the search results on him, that he is one of two in the Bible to escape death altogether.
Oh.
So think about that in relation to this search for power that you're talking about, and using the Night Sisters to escape death.
Yeah.
Right. And so as you think about what these stormtroopers are doing and the power that they're harnessing to, they're escaping death, essentially. So maybe that's the connection.
But in some way, like they're losing their humanity, which is a different kind of death. So you're sort of trading off what kind of living version of yourself you're going to be.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. Very true. Oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah, I mean the part where Thrawn says like, I'm gonna need to use some of your dark magic again. Like this has become his tool, his way to survive.
Yeah.
And he's using it, but in return is promising to take the mothers back to Dathomir, as we see at the very end. And the smiles on their faces, they approach it like they're just so happy to be home, it seems.
I know. It's like, it's like this like dark, wholesome moment. Like,
I know.
That's how I feel when I drive back into Pennsylvania, but they're witches going back to a scary planet.
I know what you're talking about too. It's like when you see your state sign, you're just like, home.
It says welcome to Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden you just start hitting potholes. But
that's not true. That's true for Michigan. When you drive into Michigan, it's like the roads just immediately change. Like we don't pave these anymore. Right. Yes. You just start hitting bump after bump after bump. It's terrible. But no, I mean, I don't know. We can talk about Thrawn the entire time, but just the way that he strategizes, the way that he, in the Dreams and Madness episode where, he's like always one step ahead of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And always getting her to go to the direction. And I think
but it's close.
The direction he wants.
It's close, but it's really close. Like she's always like almost on his heels.
Like, but that's so yes.
So it's a fair matchup almost.
It is. It really is. And he talks about that at the end, is like, you were very formidable in all of this. And they never even once came face to face because he was always one step ahead. But what I loved about it too was that he never lost sight. And this is what I think is key about him. He never loses sight of the ultimate goal, which in all of this was just to leave.
Yeah.
That's all he wanted to do, was get off that planet.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to get into a fight. Any fight that he got into, he was like, send 2 TIE fighters out, no more. Just let them slow them down a little bit.
Yeah.
Let them take out their ship and make it hard for them to come find us. He just did the bare minimum. He'd pull them back if he didn't think it was worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, the repairing the ship with Hu Yang and the little noti dudes, just a little bit of good comedy relief there.
Hu Yang
they were doing their best.
Yeah, that's true. When they just electrocute themselves.
Yeah.
Hu Yang's like, don't wait up for me or whatever he says.
Yeah.
Do
you know how old he is, by the way?
1,000 years.
Right? I read 25,000.
Oh my gosh, maybe I was way off. Really? I thought it was just like 1,000 or something. Hu Yang age. I'm certain. Oh yeah, 25,000. This says. Wow.
25,000.
That's he's insane.
Got all of that experience, all of that knowledge, all of those memories, all of that stuff to draw upon. It's pretty cool. Like he would be an interesting droid to have dinner with.
All right, here's my Good Place reference. This is Jason at one point. He's talking to Tahani and goes, "Did you raise like $1,000 for charities or something like that?" I feel like that's just what I just did with Hu Yang. Isn't he like 1,000 years old? Try 25,000.
I was thinking about the Good Place the other day because we just had some friend visiting from Florida, and there's an episode where Jason is at the airport in Jacksonville. And do you remember what the name of the airport is?
Oh, it was like Hulk Hogan or something like that. It was
Randy Macho Man Savage International Airport.
That's what it was. I was like, it's something related to wrestling, I think, right? That was wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So perfect.
Like, I know that's oh, so good. Anyway, had to throw that in there. The last thing I wanted to say on Thrawn was his speech to Ahsoka at the very end. There was something really interesting about it where he calls her a Ronin. Did you pick up on this?
Yes,
he calls her a Ronin, and I was trying to figure, is that an insult? And you know, Ronin, I mean, it's really just what she is. She's kind of masterless, right? If you look up like what a Ronin is, it's like someone who is masterless, like either because the master has passed on, or they've lost the privilege from their master. They're lost the favor of the master, I guess.
It's an independent one of one samurai.
That's it. Yeah. And it's all true, but I also think about it in the sense of what we got, like the Ronin that we got in Star Wars, in Visions.
Yeah.
Who was a little bit on the
little kind of a shadowy character.
Yes. And I got the sense from this that he was referring to her as a Ronin in more that sense, where it's like I saw some of the tendencies of your master, and we all know what happened to him.
Yeah.
It was almost goading her, like tempting her a little bit, or recalling that maybe that she's capable of the path that he went down.
Trying to call that out a little bit of like,
yes.
I see your white robe, but you're not as great as you think you are. And I think it was a little bit of a dig. I think it was a little bit of a dig. And then I think they set the record straight at the end, because at the end of it, she is now in this trusting relationship with Sabine, who's basically her Padawan. Yeah. And I think one of the things that can happen potentially on Peridea while they're stranded there is a lot more training time between those two, which could be really good. But at the end, it's like Ahsoka was sort of on an island by herself for a while, but now she is training Sabine, and she sees Anakin at the end there. And so she does have her master. She does have this relationship where she's passing on the stuff that he taught her.
Yeah.
And so I think part of Thrawn saying that was a dig to be like, you're alone in this galaxy.
Yeah.
And then at the end we saw she's really not. And in fact, she's maybe more embracing of these relationships than she has been in a while.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one time now that we're aware of that she has seen her master as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
And you've got to assume that, it's not
in the living world, in her world.
Yes. I'm being very clear in saying the Force Ghost. Like, this is not the world between worlds here we're talking about.
So is he not a Force Ghost in the world between worlds? How does that work?
I don't know. I think that was you can be.
It doesn't have our rules.
Space. Was that?
I said it doesn't have our rules. The world between worlds. So,
I mean, does it have any? Yeah. Is that your point? Like, it doesn't have any rules. Like, you can call it what you want. Do with it's between time and space. Nobody knows what happens there.
Yeah.
I thought it was a physical manifestation of him.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but maybe not. Maybe it was all because I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know. Nerdy stuff that we like to talk about.
Yeah. Hey, maybe a lighthearted moment. So
sure.
Can we talk about Hera's appearance in front of the council?
Dude, stop it. You're going everywhere that I was planning on going next. I love it.
I know. I took a look at your notes.
That's not possible. We're not in the same room.
So that was an interesting moment, I think, for me, and we could talk about this a little bit later when we're asking our questions, but I'll give you a preview of one of my questions now, which is what happens now that Ezra is back in the main galaxy, back on the main stage, so to speak.
That's
and I think it ties back to this moment here where, just to remind everybody, Hera goes in front of the council, I think for like a disciplinary action, because she conducted a mission without any direction from her superiors.
They were trying to decide if they were going to court-martial her there.
Yeah. So this is her whole career's at stake. And we've got Senator Ziono, who is a little bit of a naysayer.
He can go and hike a tree.
And I was thinking about Ezra coming back. And
I changed. Did you hear what I did there?
Go hike a tree
instead of the other thing I like to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough jokes for today.
You know what I heard recently? Rather than kill two birds with one stone. You're not supposed to say that anymore. You're supposed to say feed two birds with one hand.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. So I won't ask.
Senator Ziono, I wonder if he's a sympathizer. I wonder if like Hera.
That's what I wrote down.
Hera calls him out a little bit, saying like, you sort of waited to see which side would win. And I wonder if there are a lot more of those. And if Ezra comes back and says, guys, I can tell you, because I've seen with my own eyes, that Thrawn is back and the threat of the Empire is maybe the temperature's been turned up a little bit. Like maybe it's closer than you think. And I wonder if it's going to smoke out some of the Empire loyalists. And I wonder if like Ziono and some others are on that side of things. But we got a wonderful cameo going back to that moment in that room from who was it?
R2D2?
Incorrect.
Oh,
C3PO.
Oh, the other guy.
Who I just learned his full name is Charles 3PO. Isn't that cool?
I don't believe that. I've fallen victim to these before. I'm not believing it.
So C3PO shows up, and I saw a bunch of different media outlets were like, good call not having a CGI Leia.
So, okay, yes, that is a good call, but even better call is to find a way to actually make it stick to the plot of why she isn't there.
Yes.
Like they found a way to do that, and using C3PO instead, like, like Ziono's literally tried to cut her out of this process.
Yeah.
Ooh, dicey. Yeah. Also, to your point about Ziono, I had the same thing. He's got to be an Imperial in disguise, a sympathizer, because he's not. It's not like he's doing anything altruistic here. He's not saying anything that's like what's best for the Republic. He's not saying like there's no hint of like good motive or intention in anything he's doing at all. I couldn't pick up just. Is the word an emoticon? I don't know what I'm thinking of. Like just even iota. That's the word I was thinking of. Iota. I couldn't even pick up an iota of care for the Republic.
Yeah.
Or for his position on the council. Like there is definitely something else that he's there's definitely something else up his sleeve. Yep. And to me, the point that really drove it home was the part where Mandalore that came up.
And
he's just like, exactly my point. That was a isolated incident. I'm like, are you kidding me? They literally destroyed a planet and you're going to call it an isolated incident?
Yeah,
that's literally Death Star stuff right there. Come on.
Let's not dredge up the past here. Like,
yeah, come on, guys. That's so childish. Like, he's not fooling anyone, really. And I think what kind of bothered me, why was Chancellor Mothma just sitting there silent?
Yeah, she was sort of like, I guess, like, if I had to assign good intention to it, I think she was kind of letting it play out, and she's running things, but with her council, it's not just her, and so maybe she's got to hear everybody out.
Yes.
But there was something a little bit uneasy about that. Like,
I was just a little uneasy, and I was trying to figure out why or what. To me, I guess the way I thought of it was, maybe she was just being a little bit more respectful of his position, and
maybe she's just
being impartial.
Maybe trying to appear impartial, but maybe she was also trying to be cautious too. Of, it feels like there's something brewing, and there are people who are still loyal to. There are people who are trying to block the good work that the New Republic is doing, and she is firmly on the side of making sure that the Empire never returns. And maybe she's just kind of like taking this information in and being a little bit cautious about what she says, so she doesn't become a target.
Yeah, I mean, she's never been the one that's been too worried about showing what side she's on too. Yeah. So like she has acted in secret, but she's taken the risk. So not to push back, but like she could be comfortable with that. I thought it was more of just like she didn't want to appear as, siding with her friend.
Yeah, because
trying to just be impartial or something.
Because then she walks right up to her afterwards and's like, "We all know that, like, Leia never heard." Yeah. So we know where her loyalty is, and she does take that risk of just talking about it openly like that. But yeah, that was a little bit uncomfortable to watch Xiono go to town and insult Chopper.
Yeah, like talking about not listening to a droid or whatever. I don't know. They found a great guy to hate, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our questions.
Okay.
How about we end with that?
Yeah.
Anything else that you want to make sure we talk about before we do, though?
Just one thing, one little moment that I really loved was that's worth calling out, because I think it points to the relationship that Sabine and Ahsoka have, and the trust that they have, maybe for the first time ever, when they're fighting the scary zombie troopers in the Citadel, and Ahsoka tells Sabine to get her blasters out. Did you pick up on this moment?
I did, yeah.
And to me, that was kind of like hey, we're a team here. We've got different strengths, different abilities.
Yep.
I trust your ability to help us get out of this with your blasters. Do it your way, Sabine.
I like that. I didn't think about it that way, but it also reminds me of the whole together, stronger together.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
And how Sabine learned that lesson. Like, she could have gone with her friend, the reason that she's there to begin with. And instead she chooses to stay behind and help Ahsoka. And if it weren't for that decision, Ahsoka would be dead.
Yeah.
She saw this play out before. She didn't want it to happen again. She came to her rescue, and
and Huyang's like, "I told you so."
Huyang's like, "I told you so." Yes. But the rest is history. Like, just such a great way to tie up that storyline. And that to me is just Filoni's strength on display. Like, he knows how to take those themes and make them live through the rest of the series. Like, it's not just this one-time thing. He's going to make sure it resonates. It becomes a big storyline. And that really worked for me. Questions?
Well, let's start with the one that I was kind of posing a second ago. I got into the whole Xiono thing because I asked, what does Ezra do when he gets back? And I'd be curious what you think. Is he training Jason?
That's what I wrote.
Is he speaking in front of the Senate? Is he doing ads for Space Ketchup? What is he doing?
Well, first of all, this guy's getting a cobweb that he sees on his Star Wars Lego figure, and I don't like the minifig, and I don't like it. But I think he's training Jason. I think he's doing all the things he said, actually. He's going to get up and testify and say, all right, I left the galaxy to another galaxy with Thrawn and had to run away from him, and I literally watched him come back before my eyes. I left the ship in a Imperial, like you saw the one that was flying into the like it was an Imperial shuttle. He's wearing stormtrooper garb. Like, how can you hide anything anymore?
Yeah.
No way. No, it's not possible. So, and then he's gonna talk about, what Ahsoka's done and going out there to try to stop his return, and now is stuck out there. So, like, there's very little that Ziono can do to really push back, but he will find a way to. We know he will.
Absolutely.
Punk. That's a good question. But I do think that he'll definitely be training Jason. That seems like a no-brainer now. Like, he's gonna train the son of his master. That's just beautiful. That's poetry.
Absolutely.
Okay, what is Baylan up to? We talked about that a little bit. What did he find? What did those stories say? We never really heard the stories.
What did he find? The question I had was, will he be successful?
Absolutely.
You think so?
I think this is setting up something really, really interesting. I don't know what, and I don't know if it's going to pay off in
a movie.
I was going to say a movie, or like Rey's movie. Like, is it going to be after? Is it setting up a conflict after the conflicts of Rise of Skywalker?
Could be.
I don't know. Just putting that out there. I know I don't love speculating stuff, but I'm just saying, like, there could be so many different ways that this goes.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing. Unfortunately, we have to talk about it, though. What do you do? Ray Stevenson is passed.
This wonderful, talented actor who, what a swan song, by the way. Like, this is his last new thing to come out.
Beautiful.
Like, terrific.
I've already figured out who could play the part and still kind of feel like he's, with us, or
The Rock.
The Rock. Okay, maybe. I was thinking The Rock can't grow a beard like that, though, can he?
I don't know, but like, what if they might find a way to explain it? Like, if he comes in contact with whatever it is he's looking for, and Palpatine, went through some physical changes because of his.
Sure. I mean, I was thinking David Harbour.
Absolutely.
Like, just fits the bill. We shouldn't be trying to recast him too soon. We should be appreciating.
Who in one of the adaptations played Hellboy.
That's true. Yeah, I didn't know that until I just searched Hellboy to see if it was Marvel or DC, and I think I come from Marvel. But anyway, I don't think it's the right time to be thinking about recasting him. But I think the point is, it was too good of a performance. It was too good of a character. We've got to see the story continue, and and I think it's I think it is in some ways respectful to make sure you do. Like, he laid the groundwork for a great character.
Beautifully did a terrific job.
Let's see that character play out.
Yeah, I don't. It's so tough to tell what's going to happen with that character's story, but I do think, like you said, I think he's going to be successful in finding whatever he's looking for. The thing I also wonder about is, like, what do you think is going to happen to Shin in relation to Baylan? Is she going to want to follow? Does she feel like any connection to her old master? Does she want to find out where he's going? Or is she just sort of like, this is my new life now, separate from Baylan?
Yeah, I mean, Baylan told her to take her place in the new empire. That didn't happen. She didn't go with him. She's stuck there.
And I have a feeling it's not going to happen. I don't think she is going to. I think she's got some other destiny.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, she could have a redemptive story arc coming too, because they kind of teased that at the end of Dreams and Madness, when she decided still to run away. But you could tell that there was this conflict within her.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. Her story is really interesting, and it could go any which way, and I'm excited. It could be that she's just going to be one of the next antagonists against Ahsoka and Sabine while they're there.
Could be, but I give her, I give the actress who played her a lot of credit too.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, she doesn't say a whole lot in the whole series.
No,
she's just very few lines.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of this conflict that you see is kind of expressed through her face and, you know, her posture and stuff like that. And, you know, her questioning eyes and whatever else. Like it's the actress playing it that way, not so much her telling you what's going on inside. So
that's true.
She played it really well.
Here's my next question.
Yeah.
What is Thrawn going to do on Dathomir? And how will it lead to the First Order? I'm going way ahead, but we know the future.
Yeah. It's a good question. At first, I thought he was going to sort of Uber over the witches and drop them off and be like, all right, see you guys. But
just tip me on the app, please.
Yeah. Leave me 5 stars. I think he's probably pretty hooked on the power that they give him and the advantage that they give him. And so I think he's kind of thrown his lot in with them, and he's going to be sticking with them, I think, for a little bit.
Do you think there's eventually a connection to the First Order from this?
Maybe.
Okay.
I think there's probably a way you could connect the dots, but you know, it's not immediately coming to me.
So here's the thing that I'm going to say. I hope they do. And this is why. Because one, this is a political type of story in many ways, right?
Yeah.
It always is. Star Wars is. That's what it is.
Always.
And it, to me, first of all, it would just be so poetic if Filoni pulled from the prequel trilogy, which was very politics based, to connect it to the sequel trilogy and almost further cement the sequel trilogy and what it is into the fandom, into canon. And maybe this is just me who, you know, still has a lot of enjoyment for it. And you know, there's all those people who was like, this is all derivative, especially Force Awakens, blah, 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 blah. And to be able to point to me like, yeah, but they tied it all together.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the idea of that.
Okay.
So I kind of hope in some way what Filoni is doing is saying, here's how we get to the sequel trilogy and make everything okay, and so that we know that there is a reason that the story goes down the path that it does.
I like that. Okay.
Anyway,
cool.
I've got a lot of haters now.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
To you, because I know you don't hate the sequel trilogy.
No, I like them a lot. So here's a question from the real world that I'd be curious to get your thoughts on. So we all know that Dave Filoni, or perhaps you don't, so we can share that Dave Filoni was sort of a not like named successor to George Lucas, but definitely somebody who was tight directly with George Lucas and who George Lucas really liked. And George Lucas has said stuff like, you know, Dave gets...
Is he the heir?
Dave gets this stuff more than anybody else who I've worked with.
Yeah.
Like they're kindred spirits in some way. Do you think George sat down and watched Ahsoka?
Oh, for sure. Of course he did.
You think so? Do you think he liked it?
Yeah, I think he just watches this as to enjoy now.
Do you think he liked it? Do you think he called Dave and said like, hey, let's talk about this?
What do
you think went down in that conversation?
I'm sure he called him up and then gave him some notes on Anakin or something like that. Either positive or I'll do this next time or something. But you know, because that's the one piece where he's like really stepping on kind of George's era, right, of Star Wars. Other than that, this is all Filoni's era. Everything else.
Yeah, but didn't Filoni kind of create Ahsoka like with
George Lucas? But come on, George. Like who are you gonna like? It's together, but I'm looking at Filoni and saying like that's his character.
It's his character, and he's definitely kind of like raised this character, and kind of shown us her
story through the animated form and all that, and then through Rebels and everything. Like Ahsoka's his character, it feels
totally. I wonder. Like, what does George think? What are the conversations like?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was positive though. I would imagine George liked it. He seems to have liked a lot of the stuff that has been done.
Okay. Here's my follow-up question.
Okay.
Two questions. One, who do you think you are? And two,
how dare you?
What gives you the right?
Are those literally your questions?
No, I'm just messing around. It's your turn anyway.
I have one more question. And
okay. That was actually my last one.
Oh, okay, so this is my last one. We'll end on this. And it's not as good of a closing question.
How dare you is a good one.
That was a very good one. I'd give you that. This one is more as I watched last night, I was like, I didn't pick up on this last time, and I doubt you did too, because it was just so
What do you mean by that?
Oh, tell me if you did. If I will give you the benefit of the doubt, and I will apologize immediately after saying that. But and I'm not saying that you didn't. I'm not blaming you if you didn't. It just went over my head. What was in the cargo that Thrawn was bringing back? What specifically was all that cargo that he was putting on the ship?
Wait,
there is a small moment
where you can see it?
No, where they show like all the cargo again that they had brought with them to Dathomir.
I don't know.
And it was just a quick scene. You didn't really think anything of it. And then I saw it again. I'm like, whoa, they lingered for a second. There's something about this cargo. Like I forgot the whole entire time. Like why didn't they just get out of there? This cargo was really important. And it was important to get all of it. I have some thoughts.
Is it like crazy Night Sister artifacts, like haunted objects?
I said either dead troopers or dead witches. They kind of look like coffins. And they're bringing them back to Dathomir, and they're going to do. I don't know, but the way that it lingered on them, I was like, oh, there's something important about this cargo. No one's asked yet. What is in the cargo?
Oh, that's a great question.
Anyway, that's my
I'm
last
tweet
one.
that out. Okay, let's reflect on that.
Yes,
I have no idea. I like the idea of them being coffins. I mean, I don't. It gives me the heebie-jeebies, but
that's what I can't go out of mind.
But if you, dear listener, have an idea of what might be in that cargo, or have any other thoughts about Ahsoka, this terrific show that ended on a very spooky, happy, unresolved note, where the whole fate of the galaxy is in the balance, and we can't wait for season 2. Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter. Send us an email. Show up at Ben's house. Whatever's most convenient for you.
2:00 in the morning. Doesn't matter the time. Just show up. You're always welcome.
Ben! Sure. I'm out front.
I hated your take on Thrawn. You turned this into a PG podcast. How dare you? Well, listeners, please don't show up at my porch and yell profanities or anything. But thank you for listening.
Yeah,
and thank you for being here for this ride that we call the Star Bros podcast. And just thank you. Give it a listen on the next. Keep giving us a listen. I mean, give us a 5-star review somewhere if you can. Spread the word. Do anything to just help us out. We really appreciate it.
That would be so nice if you did that.
That would be so cool. Follow us on Twitter at Star Bros Podcast. Email us at thestarbrosPodcast@gmail.com. All that stuff.
The Broaxium YouTube channel.
Yes, of course.
At Broaxium on Twitter. I
think we got it.
BSA.com.
I don't know what that is.
Boy Scouts of America.
Okay. Oh, I should have known what that is. I'm an Eagle Scout, for crying out loud.
I just made that up. Let me check and make sure that's what BSA.com is before.
I thought you were saying my initials, my actual initials, and I'm like, my middle name doesn't start with S.
What's your middle name? I can't remember.
C.
Charles?
Sure. We're back to Charles. Charles 3PO. That's the joke of the night. Anyway,
that website doesn't work, so don't go there.
Oh, BSA.org would.
Would it? Okay.
Yeah, that hopefully works. That's the actual one. Can we wrap this up? For our poor listeners are like, why are we talking about the Boy Scouts all of a sudden?
That is the British Software Alliance or something. Anywho, thanks for listening. We appreciate you. Looking forward to the next episode. Happy spoopy season. If you by the way, if you're gonna be wearing a really cool Star Wars costume, we'd love to see it. So send us a picture, tag us in it.
Star Wars pumpkin or something like that.
Yeah, you had some good ones last year. So if you're getting into the spirit of the season with Star Wars stuff, let us know. And then before you know, it's gonna be Life Day. So we're gonna be celebrating that. But I think there's just one more thing.
Yeah.
From
death stuff to life stuff.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. The cycle of all things. And on that note, it's a wrap.